bring in Satish Jindel to talk about another big earnings report coming out after the bell. This is CSX. This is the second largest publicly traded railroad. The freight company posting fourth quarter profits $1.14 a share. My next guest, Satish Jindel. He's the president of SJ Consulting Group. Satish advises transport companies such as CSX, and he also advises on various strategies of doing business and mergers and acquisitions. Now, Satish, CSX earnings, they exceeded analyst estimates. What's your take on this? Is this all because of intermodal business, or should we add in also the automobile business in the United States?
Well, the CSX numbers, are very interesting that their revenue increased by 21%. However, their profits improved by 48%. You mentioned about $1.14 a share. That compared with 77 cents in the same quarter a year ago. And that came on a 13% increase in volume. Now, when you look at auto, as you mentioned, that was up 15%. But what's also interesting to note is that intermodal, as you mentioned, was up 14%. And what's even more relevant here is that intermodal is about a third of their volume compared to auto, which is 1/6 of the intermodal. So a 14% increase in intermodal is a much larger impact on the company than a 15% in auto. No doubt they both had very good numbers. And for CSX, the bright side for us is that they are in the shorter haul intermodal. And in the shorter haul intermodal, under 750 miles, intermodal is a much smaller percentage of the total truckload traffic compared to the over 750 miles. So there is further growth opportunities for CSX in the intermodal.
Satish, Pimm and I were also just talking about sort of the business cycle, economic growth picking up, people pretty optimistic for what's going on this year. I mean, I would imagine this can mean only good things for CSX. If people are going to be buying more stuff, that would seem to mean more business for CSX, right?
Well, that is part of it. But the other thing, Julie, is relevant here is that in the intermodal part of it, which is becoming a bigger piece of CSX and other railroads, it is a competitive market. So they're competing with the trucks. And in that context, from any legislative point of view, they don't have to worry about legislators and STB saying that you're using your monopoly power like they have in the other commodities to try and get excessive pricing.
Satish, do you expect similar results from the other railroad operators, such as Kansas City Southern or Union Pacific? Union Pacific has shown very good ability to increase margins and not take on additional costs.
Yes, Union Pacific is already out with its numbers, and again, were very impressive numbers. For this week, Norfolk Southern will be coming out tomorrow, and you can expect similar good numbers from them. And then CNI will be coming out later this week, and there's the Canadian National, and that railroad had a potential strike looming on horizon for them with the Canadian auto workers, and they settled that today. So Canadian National should be another good company to follow.
What about containers? What about the actual rail cars themselves? Are we going to see any sort of inventory drawdown, or can they be converted to intermodal containers, and as a result you might wait a long time to get those containers back in service?
Well, I think the point you're bringing up is about the changes in the container traffic and what the railroads used to make available to the intermodal companies. And clearly, the bigger players like J.B. Hunt and Hub Group, who have their own container volumes, are better positioned than some of the other intermodals who have to rely upon the railroads to make that capacity available.
All right. I want to thank you very much, Satish Jindel, joining us from SJ Consulting, based in Pittsburgh. I think I saw Satish on one of those railroads, Julie Hyman. I want to thank you, too, joining us from the markets desk, giving us that interesting insight into earnings.